Welcome to Big Butts No Lies. I'm Mavi, your go to guide for everything plastic surgery. With 18 years in the industry working alongside top board certified plastic surgeons, I know what really goes down: the good, the bad, and the botched. Now I work for you, bringing you real, unbiased info to help you make the best choices for your dream look. Whether you're going for subtle enhancements or a full on transformation, I'm here to give you the facts, the tips, and the confidence to navigate your surgery journey. Let's get into it. Should be fun. Hey guys, do I have the show for you today? As promised, I'm bringing you plastic surgeons from across the country who can help you achieve the results that you're looking for, the results of your dreams. And today I'm super excited to have Dr. Randal Haworth out of Beverly Hills, California. And you guys are in for a treat. Thank you for being on the show, Dr. Haworth.
Well, thank you very much, Mavi. Should I say Mavi Rodriguez to be formal?
It's Mavi Rodriguez. That's it.
Okay,
Uh,
I'll say
but I
Mavi
go
though, and
by
you can call me
Mavi.
Ren. Okay.
You know what, Dr. Haworth? I have a bone to pick with you.
Oh yeah? Okay.
I
I'm
heard,
sitting.
I heard that you're the reason why these women are thinking that they're going to have surgery and recover and be ready to be on the stage the next day because of your presence on the show, The Swan, so many years ago.
Yeah, well, I think that I just finished this sizzle reel for Hulu and about the Swan, the 20th anniversary. Can you believe that? And
Wow.
I was talking about that, and they were very interested from a sociological standpoint. How it really, now we're in 2025, we've got Instagram with our multi little thumbnails of everything like Andy Warhol had in his silk screens, and everybody's famous for 15 minutes. And the Swan sort of ushered in, it made it okay, I suppose, this modern zeitgeist of pop culture that we live in, where perhaps people have unrealistic expectations. And of course, Instagram filters don't help.
So now that we know how your rise to fame, right? Tell us, how did that even happen as a surgeon in Beverly Hills? Were you just approached? They came to you?
How I got involved in this was from Terry Dubrow, and I'm plugging his show. He was from Botched, but he's got an upcoming show on Peacock. And he's also going to be joining me because he's moving from Orange County to Beverly Hills. So we're expanding the office. So we're going to be some gruesome twosome. And I used to be on, TV, like newscasts and traditional media. I felt that that was just more dignified. Then this thing called reality shows came on the board, and it was Extreme Makeover with Garth Fisher, plugging him too there. And he was the first one, and it was getting a lot of flack because, the pilgrims or the pioneers are the ones that get the arrows, right? And so our American Society of Plastic Surgeons and so on were very much appalled by this new rise of reality media. And then came the Swan, and they asked me, "Oh, would you do this?" And it was an ex-employee too, which made it particularly distasteful, a disgruntled one. And I said, "Oh, I no." It just sounded so cheesy, with the reveal and all of this sort of stuff. And I can just imagine that I'd have hammers thrown at me by the boards and everything. So it just was so outrageous. But then Terry called me. And I remember I was coming from skydiving with the Golden Knights, the Army paratroopers. And it was fun. And Terry was saying, "You have to do it. We're great on TV. You'll enjoy it." So he convinced me. And they saw that I was able at that time, one of the very few surgeons, probably in the world, that was engaging in what it called in the future hyperesthetic surgery, where I'm able to tie in together many aspects um, of facial change, whether it's the eyes, the brows, cheeks, lips, nose. So I'm able to conjure it all together in a sort of a aesthetic plastic surgical recipe. And the results oftentimes superseded the individual parts. And so the producers, Nellie Galan, um, what a powerhouse she is. Um, she ran, I believe it was Univision, first female and Hispanic one to run a major studio. And she says, "We have to have you." And they had interviewed hundreds and hundreds of surgeons. So I just was sort of shoved in there. Long answer, but that's how it happened.
How wonderful. I love to hear it. It's so interesting to hear how the board was coming after you back then
Yeah.
for doing reality TV and those types of things. I know I've heard that same message from Dr. Miami when he started doing social media things on
Yes.
his end, that he was getting hounded by the board and just told that he can't do it and this is wrong and all of those things. So it's so interesting to see how the board. So, for my listeners, when I'm telling you to look for a board certified plastic surgeon, that they follow the rules very strictly because they have a board that is very, very strict. This is the type of stuff that I'm talking about. Like, the board is watching to make sure that they are keeping the board certified plastic surgeon name pristine and respectable and like with honor, right? That's how I feel, that they're making
Yeah,
sure that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
they maintain the ethical standards, but ethics change too with how society changes.
When you're looking at a face and you are making your assessment, how do you decide what needs to happen or what should happen to achieve a certain result?
Well, it starts a consultation where, and this is maybe perhaps for my benefit, where I tell the patient, I'm just your waiter at this time. If you're at a restaurant and should I get the fish or the chicken or the meat? They all look good. And then you ask the waiter, which one should I pick? And then, of course, they say, well, it depends if you like fish or chicken. And it's like, no, just tell me what is good here. So I'm their waiter, and I give them aesthetic items as they apply to Angie or Stacy, and and I'm only their chef or plastic surgeon if I feel like I can make them happy and that our expectations are aligned. And and I remind them that they give me guidance so I can give them guidance so they can make the best informed decision for themselves. So that being said, I listen to the patient first and sort of get an idea of their mindset, where they want to go. And some of them will say, I love your work. I love hyperesthetic work or so on. And I just, what's wrong with my face? So it's similar that they don't even know where to start. Whereas other people are more visual, it's in their DNA. And they're saying, oh, I really don't like my nose. And this little bump right on here, they're very specific. Whereas other people are saying, what would you do for me? And they may have had a lot of bad work because 60% of my patients are revisions. Okay. And that makes it doubly hard. So I have to sort of dissect out all the problems, excuse the pun, of like, okay, when did you get your cheek implants? When was that done? Oh, this was complicated by an infection. Oh, did they put screws in? Oh, and then you had fat transfer on top of it and some filler. And then you had a lip lift too, and the scars are down, your nostrils pulled down. So I have to address all of that. And hyperesthetic surgery is knowing all the individual instruments in an orchestra like the conductor does. The best conductors know those instruments and play them better than the individual players. And they are able to have an ability to see the bird's eye picture or hear the bird's eye squawks or the the bird bill squawks of the whole orchestra and know, ooh, that cello's out of tune. So that's how I approach it. And I've always considered myself an artist who's become a doctor as opposed to a lot of plastic surgeons out there who say, oh, we're artists. Of course they're going to say, they're not going to say, I'm a plastic surgeon. I'm your roof contractor. Of course, they're going to say we're artists, but I really was, and I was very depressed and sort of angry at my parents because I was better than my art teacher, and I'm like 63 now, and so I feel like I can speak bluntly now, whereas before I was more polite. And right, and so that's a privilege when you're getting older. It's like you just don't give a shit, right? I just
You
say it the
lose.
way it is. Big butts, no lies.
That's right. You lose the amount of F's that you give. That bag of
Yes.
F's that you give, it's empty.
Right. Yeah, you're just more real. And it's like, hey, listen, the amount of time we have on this earth is less and less. So, so, um, what it is that I was always wanting to be an artist and I painted well. And I ended up, ironically, getting perhaps more recognition as an artist, getting gallery shows and so on after being a plastic surgeon because it was more of a unique thing. And I've got actually three drawings that I've done that are on serial killer shows. Believe it or not.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
And
love
they're
a good
very
serial killer
strange
story.
stories. Yeah, it's one is on the TLC, and as with my dad when he was alive, he was living with me, and they showed some of the murder victims, and they have the drawings on which they annotate. Because I used to work in the LA County Coroner's Office as an illustrator, and also helped as an autopsy assistant. Went to the murder sites. I was sort of a morbid child at one point,
I love
and
it.
yeah. And so here it was. And I said, Dad, there's my drawings. And there's this victim, poor victim. But I pulled out the original. And then it was on Netflix, Homicide Los Angeles. So it's on the opening credits, my drawings. And then also, very strangely, it was on Serial Killers with Pierce Morgan. And that was a completely different story. It's very creepy. And I don't think that's the purpose of our talk here. But one of these days, I'll tell you, it was very, very strange.
I love to hear these stories because for me, what even motivated me to launch my podcast was that I was a complete crime junkie, listening to crime podcasts, and
Right.
I'd be folding laundry, cleaning, work out, sitting, typing, and I'm listening to a murder mystery.
Yeah, they're sort of addicting. I would fall asleep on them sometimes, but I was fascinated by all that stuff. And yeah, and I took care of one of the Zodiac killer's victims that survived because he reemerged in New York City. And I was a general surgeon then, chief resident in New York Hospital at Cornell. And one of the victims that was shot in Central Park. And they actually made a documentary about was this a real Zodiac killer? Because he was a West Coast guy. And then he reemerged in New York.
That is so interesting. I always love getting to know the surgeons, getting to hear the stories behind the name and behind the artistry and the work. I always love to hear kind of how did that even come about? Where was it born? Thank you for sharing all of that with us.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Okay.
when we talk about blending artistry with surgery, I think there's one place that is very commonly talked about, and that would be the lips. And I know you are the lip king. So why don't you walk us through what does a normal consultation for you look like when there is a patient who's considering a lip lift? Maybe somebody like me who's had a filler before and has continuously had filler, but is looking for something different.
Yeah. Well, lips are like breasts. There's a difference between a breast augmentation or lip filler and a breast lift or a mastopexy, which would be lip lift. And you have to, when I looking at the lips, you have to look at the upper lip, you have to look at the corner lips, plural, and the lower lip. And you have to realize there's a left and a right because no lips are symmetrical. So when I'm dealing with corner lips, I have to address that one side. Generally, the right side is 1.5 millimeters lower, maybe up to 2 to 3, rare on the right side. So when I'm looking at lips, my patients shake in the same way that a woman who perhaps has had three children and has breastfed, and her breasts are down by her umbilicus, and she wants to have, I've done with kids, and I would like to have breasts that are reminding me that I was back at 22 years old, uplifted, perky, less wieldy, unwieldy, less unwieldy. And so you can imagine how much horror that would invoke if that patient went to the surgeon and says, well, with her very tonic breasts, hey, let's just put some implants in those. And you'd be say, what the hell? Instead of having saggy, thinner breasts, you're going to have saggy, big breasts. So that's
Mhm.
where lip surgery or lip augmentation was up until social media. So there were very few people that were doing lip reshaping surgery when I started doing it in 1994, and I fell into it. I won the best plastic surgery research prize at UCLA for basically putting fascia inside lips, which is a ridiculous procedure. But I that's how I fell into it. And very few people in the world were doing lip reshaping surgery. There were a few that were doing upper lip lifts. Dr. Austin, who's I believe now retired, he was doing corners, but I thought, wow, he was the pinnacle of like lips. And I really got into it because I realized it was a key. It was that hidden key that tied the face together in what I call the aesthetic beauty triangle. And that started with eye tracking studies on infants before they can speak back in England. They present them with human portraits and they would track how they analyze the face. And they invariably go to the right eye, left eye, and the mouth. And I realize it should be fluid. If you're marred with a big nose, the aesthetic triangle now goes from the right eye to the left eye, maybe to the nose, and it's all about the nose. And it can't get to the mouth or anything. Or if the lips are huge, you go to the right eye, don't even get to the left, you go straight to the mouth, and you're centered around
Mm.
there. True aesthetic beauty is right eye, left eye, mouth, fluid. And and it resonates. So my best lip procedure results, when you look at the before and after, you're not even looking at their lips, you look at their eyes more. Their eyes pop because that resonance, that subliminal resonance, the soul of the person pops. So I realized that lips were a magic trick. And at the time of the Swan, too, people were saying, oh, how are you getting them to look so great? Well, it's the lip lift. You know, it's changing the ratios and it's under the radar once it heals. And so when a patient comes in and talks about lips, I tell them all this stuff. And one of the things I tell them is that, do you want to have a surgical result that lasts? Yes. Do you want one that has no scars or minimalized scars? Yeah, of course. Why are you asking me this? Would you want any lip lift that doesn't pull down your nose? Yeah, of course. What are you talking about? So that's what I realized because the problem with upper lip lifts is that lips move hundreds of thousands of times a day. Talking, I've probably already done 200,000 movements today already, and it's not even 9 o'clock. Um, Expressing ourselves, eating, yawning, kissing if we're lucky. So when you're making a lip lift and cutting, just like with a breast lift, with heavier breasts and cutting there, it better be built well in order to withstand all those hundreds of thousands of movements per day, not to mention fighting gravity. So when I realized that it was important to follow modern principles of plastic surgery, just like when you're doing a facelift, it's not just the superficial skin. It's all about the deeper layer, deep plane facelift or tummy tucks. You know, it's all about tightening the deeper structure. So there is no tension on the skin. Tension on the skin is a big no-no. It's one of the first principles you learn in plastic surgery. Any tension on the skin at the superficial layer is like putting 1,000-pound man in my jacket. These seams, which represent the freshly closed incisions, will want to burst. And at the cellular level, they lay out thicker scar, wider scar. They lose a tug of war. Or look, the nose moves, right? Pulls down the nostril. So
Mhm.
when I've done my lip lifts, I tell the patients that. And I say that they're superficial lip lifts. They're even lip lifts that they call deep plane lip lifts, but it's jumping on the name recognition of deep plane facelifts. And it's not really a deep support system. It's still a surface lip lift. And you cut here and I anchor my lip, the muscles, to the lining of the bone. So it's rendered independent of the nose, and all the lift is done way below the skin. And by the time I've closed and secured the muscle, that opening, which I cut here, is already touching, and I haven't put one single stitch in. So it minimizes all the scars. It prevents any of the pull down of the nostrils. It is the best in terms of longevity because it's built well. It's like attaching a big bookcase to the studs, the metal studs behind
Yes.
the drywall. And also the beauty is better because I can do a lot more with it. And then I realized, with corner lip lifts, I've had to invent the medialized corner lip lift. And a lot of people, I'm very proud that some surgeons actually reach out to me where they say, wow, this is a game changer because I do probably as many corner lip lifts, medialized corner lip lifts, as I do upper lip lifts. Because what's happening is with social media, the lip surgery, um, because back in the day, I've been doing this for over 30 years. And the only revisions I was doing then were my own because I was learning it. Now, 60% of my lip reshaping surgery business is doing surgery on other revisions of people from all around the world. And the problem with social media, why are they so popular now? It's only one reason why they are, and that is social media. Because back in the time, I was criticized for doing them. Now everybody's doing them, but it's a good business too, good business model because I'm doing a lot of revisions of other surgeons where they'll just do an upper lip lift. They'll look like a little bunny or they'll have a neonatal deformity. And I've written about this in one of our book chapters for plastic surgeons. And I talk about it's like the biggest treatise on lip reshaping surgery. And finally, dealing with the corners, but the lower lip too is important. So when I'm looking at a patient, I tell them, we want you to have a nice pair of lips, not just like, oh, you've got a nice upper lip, darling. Oh, what's wrong with my lower lip? So it's all about the balance and the harmony. You don't want to have that nails on on the chalkboard, where something's out of balance. And the hardest thing now, very few people deal with that, is the lower lip. It's the very important and sexy backup singer that gives you that nice fullness in the middle. That's an incision pretty much done on the inside of the mouth, and it helps raise the upper lip, the lower lip to hide the lower teeth. Because the lower teeth, because the lower lip becomes a mirror image of what we want the upper lip to look like in youth, with tooth show and an arch. But an arch it goes like this, and so that's the one code yet that we have to, that I'm figuring out to fully crack because I've felt that of course, evolution will happen, but I've cracked the codes with the upper and the corner lips. But the lower lip, it's still somewhat unpredictable in terms of getting consistently amazing results. We get consistently good results, but consistently amazing results, still working on it.
It's a
Long,
work in
long
progress.
answer.
I love it though. I love it though. With the 30 years that you've been in practice, I am sure that you have seen so many things come to market, make promises, and then fizzle out just without much noise. Some of those things were even as pertaining to lips, like those lip implants. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes,
The
permalips. That's what
permalips.
they were
So
called.
the trends. I want to talk about what you've seen as far as trends with lips and in it coming to market.
Um, Well, I remember that one. The permalip was a disaster. And one thing I've learned is to not thread any, don't thread anything in the lips. Because I was doing that. Like you'd go in and get some fascia here, make a tunnel and thread that in. It's a very stick figure approach. If you're drawing the little kids drawing a human, they'll mommy or daddy a stick figure. It's a stick figure approach to lip enhancement. And the end results, even if it was good, are not good. And if they say, "Oh, well, at least it's at least you don't have a complication." But when you thread things from the left to the right in the lids to sort of enhance the white roll, etc., it tends to overexpand indiscriminately. So you just sort of get this tubular look. You can oftentimes feel those implants, and sometimes you would even have encapsulation where it would tighten and it felt like a piano wire and they can't open their mouths. And then there was other stuff where people were putting in Gore-Tex like crazy. I've probably taken that out maybe 15 times over the years. And sometimes
Wow.
it was like, oh, I pull out a string of Gore-Tex. Oh, there's another one. Oh, there's another one. And I end up pulling out like 10 of them on the upper
Wow.
and then like 30 on the lower. And a lot of times we'll have to remove that if some people have it because the lips, those types of lips are very stiff. And if I'm going to now do VYs where I want to have a nice mobile lip that responds to my surgical intervention, you don't want to have anything in there that's hard that prevents the movement of the outpouting and the eversion of the lip, which those things can do. Um, and then they've also had something where they do thread lifts for the lip or suturing. I've taken those out because they tend to, because of the tightness, I mean, because of the movement, they tend to erode and they start coming out and they end up as infections and they sort of attach it to the base of the nose like a bull ring piercing, but it's so in
Mm-hmm.
there. And it just, even the results, if they are good and you don't have a complication, are meh. They're still, then why are you still coming to me for a lip lift? That means that belies the fact that that was not six. So you
That
didn't have a
sounds,
complication, but you're here because you're unhappy with the damn thing. So I've seen all that and
yeah.
more.
You mentioned permalip, you mentioned the lip threads, the threading. We've had
Gore-Tex, yep.
we've had
Oh, and
multiple
suture lifts.
suture lifts. So we've had a lot of surgeons on the show come on and talk about finding threads when they're doing facelifts, finding the barbed threads during the facelifts. What has been your experience with that? Have you seen it as well?
Yes, I have. And fortunately, those tend to be by the time we're getting in there, you'll see some of the remnants because most of them that are done are that are done in the States are absorbable threads. So they sort of harmlessly dissolve. My sort of beef with suturing, I mean those thread lift, is that they don't really last very long. That tends to be the prevailing consensus among patients that I speak to. They said, yeah, they had it done. It's $3,000 later, and it was okay for about six months. And bottom line is, they're in my clinic wanting to get a facelift. So if I do fully embrace, unlike other surgeons where it's just surgery. Oh, we hate fillers and all that. No, I feel these are just tools in my art box. And I was very much against RF. I got burnt by that, excuse the pun, when I first had thermage, yeah, years ago. And my dermatologist still used it, but I remember thermage was that RF that was done transcutaneously with the stamps. And
It's still out there.
body type, face type. I I just had problems with them. Maybe I didn't do it right. I don't know, but I saw a burn, and a lot of times you'd see beautiful results, and then you look at that. Oh, great! Oh, it's amazing. And then you look at them a year later, and the patient's coming back saying, it didn't really work very well because it's sort of after in the end, it's sort of some of the sagging return. So, but however, I keep an open mind. I love the new Morpheus platform. I finally think that they've sort of caught up. I've seen some very good results. I've done it on myself personally 3 times. My eyes it's not a blepharoplasty, but it's a real significant conservative blepharoplasty result. And so I've done that, and I really like it along with quantum. So bottom line is 70% of new technology overpromises and underdelivers. Um, and I'm very suspicious of it. So Motiva came out with implants recently, and they've had that's a new breast implant that you may have heard. I'm sure your listeners who listen to this are fairly well versed on this type of stuff, already. And they've had a 10-year experience in the European market arena. Um, and I'm platform agnostic now, implant agnostic, because sometimes I'll use an allergan or a Natrel because it has a low profile, and I like Mentor a lot. That's always the tried and true. Um, and I've liked Sientra. I've been around long enough where there was this company called PIP, Polyimplant Processes, and they were from France, and they were the latest and greatest. Well, a lot of them were rupturing that. The company went bankrupt, and the CEO was in prison.
Oh,
Okay, so now comes Motiva, and they're nowhere close to PIP. I mean, they've had a 10-year experience, but they're saying we don't have any capsular contracture. We're practically zero. So I'm saying, wow, who wouldn't want to sign up for that? Patients will love that, and so with surgeons, because when we have an encapsulation, if you look at it even cynically, we don't even make money on that. If a patient encapsulates in the first year or two, I used to forego my personal fee, and the patient would just pay OR and anesthesia, and it kept everything transparent and honest.
mm-hmm.
And we both had the same goals in mind. It was like we all want patients to be happy.
Big
Happy
smile.
smile. Yes, it's good for business and it's good for sleeping at night, right? And so it's very simple stuff. And so Motiva comes along, no encapsulation. Ooh, because just for your viewers, breast implants have a high operative rate, and primarily because of breast encapsulation. And above the muscle, but there's studies that say it's 20 to 40% encapsulation rate. That's just unacceptable. Below the muscle, which I do by planar technique, is around 10 to 15%. If you look at the studies from Allergan or Natrel, Mentor, and that, 10 to 15. Mine is around 8%. It's still not down to zero. Now Motiva says, ooh, it's under 1%. Wow, this will solve a lot of problems. So they've only been out for since January. I speak to my friends and colleagues, and they're saying, "Oh, yeah, we like them. Yeah, yeah." Well, I don't know what I do wrong. I think I do breast pretty good. And so I did two of them, and they're beautiful. But then I get a call because it's like, and the patient comes in post-op, and she loved her results, and I loved them too. They were good. And she said, and then I says, "How's it going?" And she says, "Okay." I like hate hearing that. Okay. I like to say, "Great." And then I look, and one of them slightly encapsulated.
Ah,
So So whether that was just bad luck because it's a 1%, but again, it underscores the fact that all this technology overpromises, underdelivers, they skew results. So time will tell.
mm-hmm. You're 100% right. Time will tell. Just
Yeah.
with all the other things that come to market, it's time will tell if it's something that's going to stick or if it's just all
Yeah.
smoke and mirrors.
And a lot of times it does. Photofacials, I thought, oh God, I have an IPL machine and I can't do without it. It's such an important adjunct. You know, to what I and CO2 laser and the erg laser. They're machines and they're reliable like a car,
Mm-hmm.
and can't do without it.
Exactly. I love to hear how you blend your different things in your toolbox. I think that's something that's really important for surgeons, because I agree with you that with when you go to a surgeon and they don't have a lot of tools in their toolbox, they're gonna be recommending whatever the procedure is that they're fantastic at, and we know that. We know that. I've
Yes, it's
really
true. They'll do that, and then they'll oftentimes if they're not good at a procedure and they don't do it. Um, What is happening here? Sorry about that. Oh my
No worries.
God. Okay,
I
good.
think AI tracking is so funny. It makes me laugh because I'm like, "Hey, I moved. Catch me." Like I'm not, you're not following me. And then other times it follows me.
Yeah, it's either good or it isn't. Like, why is the hell going down here? Dude, dude. Oh, he's so stupid. Look.
I love your house. Is this your house or
Oh,
your office?
yes,
It's
it's a house. It's a no,
beautiful.
it is a beautiful house. And it's an old school house. 19 It's almost 100 years old now. It's going to
Oh,
have its
wow.
birthday in 2 years' time.
Wow, how beautiful. I love your story. I know when I was reading over your podcast guest form, you were mentioning that your parents came when you were young and you were fleeing. They were fleeing from something. I'd love to
No, I think they
hear
were
your
just
story.
fleeing from they're fleeing from LA.
From
No,
LA.
but it was like they were immigrants after World War II, and my mother from Holland, and my dad was English but born in Colombia, and my grandmother's name, my late grandmother's name was Trujillo, and so our family's down in Bogota. So the remaining parts of our family are basically in Colombia and also Holland, and so. My dad, he was crazy, and he said, go into this old Pontiac four-cylinder, crappy car, and he put my mother and I in there, and he was going to drive to Colombia from Bogota. And you can imagine how that went. And I was 9 years old. We had a lot of adventures.
That
And they
sounds
took me
like
out of school, and then it was all to take me eventually to England and we took off from Caracas, in Venezuela in 1970, and
wow.
that was when Venezuela was known to be a very wealthy country, and it boasted the Trans-American Highway, which was the most expensive highway in the world. Well, it's funny how time will tell as things change, right?
Exactly, exactly. I've
Yeah.
really enjoyed having you on the show, and I always ask my surgeons this question, and usually it's about mommy makeovers, it's about tummy tucks, but the question is, it also pertains. Question comes with face as well. Are you team drains or no drains?
Um, every time I answer questions like this, Mavi, um, it's because I don't talk from a hypothetical. It's because I've held that AK-47. I've been in the trenches and have seen it. So I have done it where I was doing drains and then I went to fiber and glue. And I was loving that for about 6 to 8 months. But then patients would have more seromas. And I said, it's great until it's not great. And so then I went back to drains. And then I recently, about a year ago, started doing netting, you know, the
Ooh, I
suturing.
love the
And
netting.
yeah, and that's really cool. But sometimes it's not cool because sometimes, again, if the patient is a bit wet and you're just doing netting, you'll have little microseromas between the net. And it takes a
Mhm.
lot longer during the surgery. And then afterwards, you have to chase it with transcutaneous needles, with needles to drain it. And oftentimes it will leave bad or scars if you leave it in for just 4 days. So I use the netting, I use drains. I use netting here because I use it now selectively when you get a facelift and everything looks sharp and I want to keep it that way. So I use the netting in the areas that I know have a tendency to become less sharp in the healing phase. So and that's because there's a little few micro drops of very inflammatory, though natural fluid that can develop where it wasn't sucked out through the drain because, you're draining a big area and they're quite understandable. There are little areas that go left undrained that are just way in the corners. And
Mhm.
that's very inflammatory. So I use netting strategically, but not throughout the whole face like Hellraiser.
How
You've seen
cool.
Hellraiser where they're
Yes,
all.
yes, yes.
So I don't do that because I've seen complications from other sides of that. But I pick and choose and then sort of create my own recipe of what needs to be done. And then everybody's different. When I see a patient, it's like I don't do the same facelift all the time. There's an endoscopic mid facelift. I do that one all the time because it's either done well or not. But it's not a lot of decision making once you decide. It's fun, but it's like, oh, cut here, da, 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 and do a full release and lift up. There's not a lot of different vectors here. But when it comes to a regular facelift, whether it's with an incision inside and around and behind the ear, you're tightening the neck, the jawline, the helping the mid face. There's so many different variants, and so you've got the deep plane facelift, compound facelift, high smash, low smash. I do a Y smash. So, but when I'm looking at somebody, some people don't need as much dissection here. Some people need more tightening here. So you have to listen to the tissue and it's not rote. So the facelifts, that's what I mean by that. No facelift is alike. No singular. Even though I'm doing the same Weiss mass on you and there, but it's a different amount of dissection. It's taking into account the individual idiosyncratic asymmetries that a person may have in the face. All of that type of stuff gets added and accounted for in the mix.
I love it. I love it. I customized to each patient is what we want.
Right.
That's
Yes.
exactly what the patients are looking for. Before my last question, and then I'm gonna let you go. What is your opinion
Yes.
on hyperbaric chambers?
Um, you have very good questions today. Mavi, I tell patients to do it. I think it helps with swelling and bruising. So it does help them get better quicker.
Uh-huh.
But it's no magic bullet like, oh, I'm all swollen and all that. Well, do the hyperbaric. It's not like, oh, you've got an infection, you take antibiotics, you definitely
Mhm.
will get better. It's not like that. So it's the same thing as like arnica and bromozyme and pycnogenol. How do these help? Some people swear by them, some people not. They don't harm anything. I recommend it. And if you have also the money for it, because it's a little bit of an added cost. But I say if you're going to do the hyperbaric, some people start before the surgery. Probably not a bad idea, but I start them the day, immediately the day thereafter, and at least 3 to 4 times thereafter. If it's for wound healing, if you're just going to do 3 hyperbarics, let's say you have a necrosis or a little area back here, or God forbid, insurance companies, they've even realized this, um, is that they will not cover hyperbaric oxygen for a diabetic wound or anything for that, unless you've had over, let's say, you'll get 10 to 15 treatments because for wound healing, hyperbaric oxygen works, but only after 10 to 15 treatments. So it's not just so if we're thinking you're getting a hyperbaric oxygen after an elective as aesthetic facial surgery, and it's going to heal wounds and all that, with 3 hyperbaric oxygen treatments, not going to and this is scientific fact, is not going to heal anything. But does it help in terms of taking down the swelling quicker and maybe the bruising? Yes. So it will not avert a complication unless it's done a lot.
Mm.
And I've also seen, though, that it can induce more chemosis, where after surgery and patients have that jelly in the eye. Sometimes if you're doing fat transfer or brow, and a patient say, "Look, there's jelly in my eyeball," and that's normal. That's how our eyeball manifests swelling. It looks like
Mm.
jelly. But I've seen with chemosis gets worse when they get lots of hyperbaric oxygen. So
Mm.
um, that's all interesting. I found that
Yeah.
out just about 2 weeks ago, and I made that connection, and I confirmed it with ChatGPT.
Speaking of AI and aesthetics, right?
Yeah,
I love to hear it. Thank you so much for being on the show
you're
today,
welcome.
Dr. Howarth. How would my girls get a hold of you if they want to come see you for surgery?
Oh, We could do it through the website, drhaworth.com, drhaworth.com. Promo code, no. And and then, but you can also just reach my office at 310-273-3000 and speak with either Gentana or Liz, and they'll be very delighted to help you. And a lot of times we'll like to look at pictures first. And so I sort of ascertain whether I can help somebody or not before we actually take it upon ourselves to do a consult and waste people's time.
I love that. I love that approach because women are looking for surgeons, and sometimes it's almost to them a little bit too much when they have to go through the process with multiple different surgeons, and just to find out that they're not in their price range or that that surgeon can't help them.
That's very true. And and in social media too, just from a business person's standpoint, you don't want to peak people off, or irritate them. Because I can imagine if I'm in their footsteps and I'm on a budget, we all have our own budget constraints, but you're there and say, oh, we'll take, let's say, 250 or $500 for a consult. And then you do that and find out that, oh, this is the price of a Bugatti. Like, whoa.
Exactly.
And you wish you were just told that, so that
You don't
part
waste
of
your time.
free marketing, you get a rough idea of like, why would I want to look for a Bugatti if I mean, I love that car, but I know I'm not going to go there because I know that the price range is at least $1 million to $2 million. It's just that's for people with FU money.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I wouldn't even go there, and I'd be embarrassed if I'd say go there and say, "Oh, how much is it going to be?" And then they'll say, "Oh, 1.5 million." I sort of makes me feel uncomfortable, and I'd say, "Well, why'd you take my money for a consult?"
I agree. I agree. I agree with you. And I think patients, you're in the right mind frame of what patients are feeling when they get these. I've seen patients get, well, a client who came to me for who got a facelift consult that was close to $200,000, and it just, I was like, what is
Yeah,
what?
that's well, kooky. Yeah, but they have
I
to
think
know they.
I think you know, you'll probably know who it is when I tell you off
Yeah.
air who's quoting that.
Oh yeah. Well, there are a few. I don't think we're that expensive, but we're not the cheap price range, but I think we're priced fairly. And I mean, sometimes I lament the fact because I don't get a patient off that table until I'm completely satisfied that they are happy, that I am happy. And pretty much, unless they're smaller cases, I just do one patient a day during surgery. And we operate 2 days a week. And I need to recharge my batteries because it really is a deep dive when you're getting in there and a patient wants you to do their surgery. They're entrusting me as their captain of their ship, their Sherpa, and I have to take them across the Himalayas. Hopefully, the weather's good. In other words, just like a flight person,
Yeah.
there could be turbulence, but I'll still get you there safely because I can't account for any little, if you have a little complication here or there, because after all, we're operating on healthy people in order to make them look better. We're making them temporarily unwell in order to make them look better. And that's quite a responsibility that, that, that I have to undertake, and that the patient entrusts us with that. And so also I have to instill that with them that, listen, I'm here with you from the beginning to the end. And I don't push them. We include lasers with our surgeries that are part of the price. And, I don't, I'm sort of not cheap with my time.
I love it. I love it. But you get what you're paying for. And patients, when they receive what they're paying for and they feel like that value is there, they will find a way. If this is my surgeon, I'm going to
Mm,
find a way to make sure
yeah.
I can have surgery with them. So I really appreciate your honesty and transparency through all of these different topics that we touched today. It was such a pleasure to have you on, and I hope to have you back on in the future.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Mavi. I
You're
enjoyed
very
it.
welcome.
It was a nice interview. Thank you. I
Thank
appreciate it.
you. So, with that, you guys, I'll see y'all next week. Thinking about plastic surgery, but you don't know where to start? I've got you. With 18 years in the industry and experience working with top board certified plastic surgeons, I help women like you make informed and confident decisions. Whether you need help choosing a surgeon, planning your recovery, or understanding what to expect, I've got your back. Skip the guesswork and get expert guidance by booking a call with me today. That's a wrap for this episode of Big Butts No Lies. If you found this episode helpful, do me a favor and subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend who's considering plastic surgery. Until next time, stay confident, stay informed, and remember, big butts don't lie.